Stand here with me for a second, right at the edge of your driveway, where the mail carrier stops, where the delivery driver pauses, where a buyer's car rolls up and idles before anyone opens a door. Turn around and look back at your own house, the way a total stranger sees it, because that stranger has already decided something about you. They decided it in about 7 seconds, before the engine was even off. Here's the truth I've watched play out for almost 30 years, quoting jobs and standing on curbs beside buyers and agents. Your yard is talking whether you like it or not, and most of the time it's saying the wrong thing. It's whispering cheap when your house is actually worth a fortune, and the cruel part is you stopped hearing it years ago. I still remember a couple in a lovely brick colonial who could not figure out why every showing ended with a polite no. I stood at their curb, looked back, and saw it in 4 seconds. It wasn't the house. It was a row of sun-faded plastic gnomes and 3 different shades of mulch fighting each other. The house was worth every penny. The curb was calling it a bargain bin. By the end of this walk, I'm going to show you the one detail that flips the entire verdict, the single trick that makes a yard full of cheap, second-hand dollar store garden pieces suddenly read like you hired a designer and spent thousands. It costs almost nothing, and you can do it this weekend. And it works whether you're planning to sell next spring or die in this house at 95, because you deserve to live somewhere that looks like it respects you. So let's walk, slowly, the way they do. Look down first. Right where we're standing, at the transition from the driveway or the sidewalk into your actual yard. That first foot of ground. Because this is where the stranger's eye lands before it ever reaches your flowers or your front door, and this is where the verdict quietly begins. Here's what nobody tells you. A buyer's brain doesn't evaluate your garden art piece by piece. It scans for one thing first. Does this look intentional, or does it look like stuff just accumulated here? Accumulation reads as poverty, even when the individual pieces cost real money. Intention reads as wealth, even when every single piece was free. And the very first place accumulation shows up is your edges. That ragged line where the grass sort of dribbles into the flower bed, where the mulch has crept out onto the lawn, where nothing has a crisp boundary. I've watched appraisers, professionals with clipboards, unconsciously slow their step at a clean-cut edge and speed up past a mushy one. They don't even know they're doing it. The clean edge signals someone here maintains things, and maintenance is the #1 thing that separates a house that shows well from one that sits. Here's the hack, and it's almost insultingly cheap. A simple spade, or a $40 manual edging tool, cutting a sharp 2 to 3 inch trench between your lawn and your beds. No plastic edging, no landscaper, just a clean vertical line in the soil. That trench alone, done around your front beds, makes people believe you spent hundreds on professional bedwork. In reality, you spent an afternoon and the cost of a blister. But here's the thing that should bother you. That ragged edge has probably been there so long you genuinely cannot see it anymore. Your eye edited it out. Which means every visitor, every neighbor, every drive-by has been reading a verdict you're not even aware you're broadcasting, and it gets louder as we move up the path. So follow me a few steps closer to the house, to whatever you've got flanking your walkway or clustered near your steps, your pots, your planters, your containers, because this is where I catch more people accidentally screaming cheap than almost anywhere else on the property. Let me guess what I'm looking at. A collection of pots in different materials, one terracotta, one of those glossy blue ceramic ones from a summer clearance sale, a plastic one pretending to be stone, maybe a hanging basket that's seen better days. Each one, on its own, was a fine little purchase. Together, they're a garage sale, and the stranger's eye doesn't see 4 pots. It sees clutter, and clutter is the visual language of a home that's stretched thin. Now here's what genuinely surprised me when I first learned it. Standing beside a stager who'd sold hundreds of homes. The expensive look in container gardening has almost nothing to do with the pots themselves and everything to do with 3 rules: repetition, scale, and odd numbers. Repetition means matching. 3 identical pots reads as a design choice. 3 different pots reads as whatever was on sale. Scale means bigger than you think. A row of tiny pots looks fussy and poor. 1 oversized planter, the kind that makes you go, "That's a lot of pot," reads as confidence, as money, as a person who isn't counting pennies. And odd numbers, 3 or 5 instead of 2 or 4, is a trick every high-end designer uses because the human eye finds odd groupings more natural and more expensive looking. Nobody can tell you why, it just works. So here's the move that costs you nothing but a Saturday. Take the mismatched pots you already own. Don't buy new ones. And I'm going to come back to what you do with them, because it connects to the single most powerful thing on this entire walk, and I don't want to give it away yet. For now, just group them. Odd numbers. Cluster 3 together instead of spacing them out in a lonely line. Put the tallest in the back. Suddenly a pile of clutter becomes an arrangement. Same pots, same plants, completely different verdict, and it cost you the price of nothing. But pots are just objects sitting on the ground. The next thing the eye does is lift, and this is where I see people waste the most money trying to look rich while actually looking desperate. Because up ahead is your garden art itself, the statuary, the decorative pieces, the stuff you added specifically to make the yard feel special. And I need to tell you something that's going to sting a little, therefore stay with me, because the fix is going to feel like relief. Most decorative garden art actively lowers the perceived value of a home. I know, you bought it to raise it, but here's what I've watched happen from the curb. A yard with too many small, busy, individually cute pieces, a gnome here, a decorative frog there, a shiny gazing ball, a little wind spinner, a resin fairy, reads to a buyer's brain as busy, as cluttered, as a place they'll have to spend a weekend clearing out. And clutter outside makes people assume clutter inside. That's the silent leap they make. Messy yard, messy house, hidden problems, lower offer. There's real weight behind this. Researchers at Virginia Tech, working with horticulture professor Alex Nemira, found that quality landscaping can add as much as 12% to a home's perceived value. But dig into the studies and the word that keeps coming up isn't more, it's design sophistication, coherence. It was never about adding more stuff, it was about the stuff looking like it belonged together. A yard can have $1,000 of garden art in it and read as cheaper than a yard with one well-placed $40 piece, because the single piece looks deliberate and the $1,000 looks like a hoarder's shelf. So the hack here is subtraction before addition. Walk your yard and pull 2/3 of the small decorative pieces. Just remove them. Store them, gift them, whatever. Keep the largest, best one and give it room to breathe. One striking piece with empty space around it looks like a gallery. 5 pieces crammed together look like a yard sale you forgot to end. And I can feel some of you resisting, therefore let me say it plainly. I'm not telling you to strip your yard bare and make it boring. I'm telling you that empty space is the most expensive-looking thing you can own, because it's the one thing people who are scrambling can never afford to have. Rich yards have room to breathe. Struggling yards fill every inch trying to prove something. Now, before we go further, I want to talk to the half of you who've been quietly checking out, because I know exactly what some of you are thinking right now. This is all fine for people trying to sell. I'm staying put. I don't care what a buyer thinks. Stop right there, because this next part is the most important part of the whole walk, and it's aimed straight at you. Here's what I've learned in 3 decades of this. The verdict a stranger forms in 7 seconds is the exact same verdict you form every single day when you pull into your own driveway. You just formed it so long ago that it went silent. But it never stopped working on you. That low, flat feeling when you come home. That vague sense that the place is fine but never quite feels like the home you pictured. That's not in your head. That's your own eye reading the same cheap signals a buyer reads, and quietly deciding your home is a place to endure rather than a place to love. And here is the fix that serves both of you at once. The seller counting return on investment and the stay forever homeowner who just wants to feel proud pulling in. It costs almost nothing. It needs no contractor. It's the same move regardless of your plan. And it's this. You unify. You stop adding and you start harmonizing what's already there. The seller gets a curb that lifts the offer. The stay forever owner gets a home that finally exhales when they look at it. Same weekend, same cost, both of you win. Let me give you the low-cost, no-contractor version right now, because I promise something for both groups, and here it is. Mulch. The cheapest, most overlooked unifier on the whole property. I've seen homeowners spend $2,000 on plants and then surround them with 3 different mulches, some old and gray, some that dyed orange stuff, a patch of gravel over here. The eye reads chaos, and the $2,000 in plants evaporates. Before we take those last steps up the path, let me stop us right here at the mulch, because this is where the whole system finally clicks. You've been standing at your own curb feeling that quiet sting, seeing your yard whisper cheap for the first time in years. That's the exact ache I put every bit of my 30 years into fixing, and it lives in the 3-volume collection I built, the complete curb appeal system. First Look walks you through why your yard looks worse than you think, and hands you the hierarchy of impact, so every dollar goes in the right order, instead of getting wasted. Yard Elevated gives you the elimination protocol to strip out what's silently making you look cheap, and the ROI protocol that shows which upgrades add real dollars at resale. The Yard system hands you the done-for-you cases and templates so you never have to guess. And here's a check you can run tonight, for free. Walk your beds with a flashlight, find one ragged edge, and cut that sharp 2-inch trench I just showed you. Look at it in the morning. That one clean line will prove to your own eye that this works, before you spend a single dollar on plants. The fastest way to get the books is to scan the QR code right there on your screen, or go to the link in the description, or the pinned comment. And this matters right now for one honest reason. Your yard is broadcasting that verdict to every drive-by today, whether you fix it this season or not. Now, mulch back on your shoes, let's take that last stretch, because it all builds to one detail. One mulch, one color, a natural dark brown, shredded hardwood, spread fresh across every bed on the property. It's maybe $80 to $150 in bags for an average front yard, less if you buy it in bulk. And here's what I've watched it do, over and over. That single dark, consistent field of brown makes every green plant pop like it's glowing, ties every unrelated bed into one intentional design, and instantly reads as professionally maintained. Realtors have quietly told me for years that fresh mulch is the highest return per dollar of anything you can do to a front yard, with some outdoor cleanup and refresh projects returning well over 100% of their cost at resale, according to Remodeling and Real Estate Association surveys. But you don't need to be selling to feel it. You'll feel it the first time you pull in and your own yard finally looks like it's on your side. Please stay with me for this last stretch, because everything we've walked past so far, the edges, the pots, the art, the mulch, all of it has been building to one single detail. The one I've been holding back, the one that decides the entire verdict. Because you can do everything I've said and still miss the thing that separates a yard that looks like effort from a yard that looks like money. And I missed it myself for years. Early in my career, I genuinely believed expensive yards were expensive because of what was in them. Better plants, pricier stone, fancier fixtures. I was wrong. And a designer I worked beside on a high-end job finally made me see it, and once I saw it, I could never unsee it. Now I'm going to hand it to you. Here it is. Color discipline, one color, repeated. Let me explain what I mean, because it's simpler than it sounds and more powerful than you'll believe. Walk up to any yard that makes you think, wow, someone spent real money here, and study it, really study it, and you'll notice something almost invisible. The hard elements share a color. The pots, the trellis, the bench, the lantern, the window boxes, the front door, the fence caps, the garden art, they're not random. They repeat one deep, quiet color over and over, usually a dark one. Charcoal, near black, a deep bronze. A muted forest green so dark it reads as a neutral. That repetition is the entire secret. When a single dark color repeats across every hard object in a yard, the human eye stops seeing individual cheap things and starts seeing one unified, intentional design. It literally cannot tell that your 3 pots came from a dollar store, a clearance rack, and your grandmother's shed, because they've all disappeared into one confident color story. The eye reads coherence as cost, every single time. And here's the part that should make you a little bit angry, now that you're this far in. This is exactly why professional designers and staging companies can charge what they charge. Not because they're buying you expensive things. Half the time they're spray painting the mismatched junk you already own a single unified color and presenting it back to you as a curated collection worth thousands. I've watched it happen on job sites. A stager pulled a rusty old chair, a plastic planter, and a garden lantern out of a homeowner's own garage, hit all 3 with the same can of matte charcoal spray paint, grouped them by the front steps, and that afternoon the homeowner teared up because their yard looked, in their words, like a magazine. Total material cost, 2 cans of spray paint, under $20. That's the trick they'd rather you not understand plainly. because if you understood it, you'd realize you don't need to buy new expensive garden art. You need to unify the cheap garden art you already have. So here is exactly what you do this weekend, and I want you to do it in this order. First, gather every hard, non-living piece in your front yard. The mismatched pots, the tired garden bench, that metal trellis, the old lantern, the garden stakes, the bird bath. Line them up on a drop cloth. Second, pick one dark, matte color. I tell people to go charcoal or near black because dark recedes, makes plants look lush, and never looks cheap. Matte, not glossy, because gloss catches light and screams plastic, while matte reads as iron, stone, and money. Third, spray them all the same color. Every one, even the ones that already looked fine, especially those. Then you place them using the rules from earlier. Odd numbers. Grouped, not scattered. One big anchor piece with breathing room. All of them now sharing that single quiet color, sitting on that single field of dark mulch, behind that single crisp cut edge. Step back to the curb with me and look. What you'll see is a yard that looks like someone with taste and a budget planned every inch of it. Nobody, and I mean nobody, will guess that the designer planters are dollar store plastic, that the wrought iron bench is a rusty flea market find, that the whole coordinated collection cost you under $30 in paint. The stranger's eye will land, and it will not stumble, and it will not speed up, and it will not whisper cheap. It'll go quiet, in the good way. The way it goes quiet at a house that clearly, calmly, has its act together. That's the flip. That's the whole verdict, turned, for the price of 2 cans of spray paint and a Saturday. And I want you to understand why this was invisible to you, because it was invisible to me too. The trade has no reason to point it out. There's no profit in telling a homeowner, keep your old junk and spend $20. The profit is in selling you new pots, new statuary, new fixtures, a design consultation, an install fee. The single most valuable move in your entire front yard is also the one nobody's incentivized to teach you, because it makes them almost nothing. So it stays a quiet professional secret, passed between stagers and designers, while homeowners keep spending thousands trying to buy a look they could have created for the cost of lunch. The signal was always there in every expensive yard you ever admired. You just read it as they spent a fortune instead of they picked one color. Now you know the difference. Now you can read it too. Let me tie the whole walk together, because I don't want you to remember 5 separate tips. I want you to remember one idea. Coherence is what money looks like. Not more, not newer, not bigger. Coherence. A yard where the edges are crisp, the mulch is one color, the clutter is gone, and every hard piece sings the same single note. That's the yard that gets the full price offer. That's the yard that makes your own heart lift a little when you pull in after a long day. And you can build it from the stuff you already own and were half ashamed of. So here's what I want you to feel as we finish. For the first time, you're standing at your own curb seeing exactly what everyone else has been seeing all along. The strangers and the neighbors and the buyers who never got out of the car. You're not being flattered anymore. You're being told the truth. And I think you're the kind of homeowner who'd rather have the blunt verdict you can actually fix than a comfortable lie that quietly cost you thousands and years of that flat feeling in the driveway. Now do something for me, because this next part matters. Walk back out to your curb, right now if you can, and look at your own house the way we just practiced. Then tell me in the comments which stop stung the most. Was it the ragged bed edge you suddenly can't unsee? The pile of mismatched pots? The 2/3 of garden art I just told you to pull? Or was it the color discipline, the thing you never once considered? Pick the one that hit hardest and write it below, and tell me where you're watching from, because I read these and I like knowing which curbs I'm standing on around the world. If you want to keep learning to see your property the way a buyer's eye really moves across it, not the way a magazine tells you it should look, stay with me here, because that's the whole point of these walks. In the next one, I'm going to show you the single thing near your front door that buyers check within the first 10 seconds. The one that makes them decide whether your house has been loved or just occupied. And it's not the door, it's not the paint, and almost everyone gets it wrong. I'll be standing at your curb when you're ready. Come find out what yours is saying. Before you go, one more thing. This walk gave you the overview, but inside the curb appeal circle, I take you through the full curb transformation, edge to entry, at your own pace. And if you get stuck, you ask me directly, and a real person, me or my team, answers you. You won't be doing this alone. Just point your phone's camera at the code on your screen. Cancel any time with one click. I'd love to have you with us. Now that your garden art looks like $1 million, let's make the whole yard match. I'll show you 10 more simple, budget-friendly tricks that make everything look expensive. Go ahead and start watching right now.